everyone. Welcome to the 12 Man Insight Podcast. My name is Mo, and I'm here with Tommy, college football scout and diehard Seahawks fan. What's up, Tommy? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Still trying to move past Sunday's result, but I'm doing good and I'm ready to dive in.
Yeah, let's talk about that beating, man. So the Seahawks lose to the Buffalo Bills 31-10. Just got bullied in their own stadium. What happened, Tommy? What did we see on Sunday?
You know, what we saw was basically a full bully sesh by Buffalo onto the Seahawks. I mean, I just the way we got pushed around on both sides of the ball. The Bills dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage. It was just tough to watch, and it definitely is a bit disheartening. Last episode I talked about how I thought the Bills would win the game, and to be honest with you, I was still surprised at how it went. Um, for us, I think it's kind of a humbling game. It tells us really who we are right now because I don't think it's a secret to say that the Bills are a really, really good football team, and I think they are a Super Bowl contender. And I think they kind of set the bar for us and to tell us where we are not right now. And so hopefully, the team can take that and learn from it and maybe take some steps forward in the coming weeks based off what happened on Sunday.
I agree with you, man. And it kind of reminded me of what KJ Wright said, the great KJ Wright. Shout out to him. He had a saying, after the Seahawks got beaten up by the Steelers last year in that game, they could have made the playoffs and they just got whooped in the line of scrimmage. He had a saying, man. He said, boys do what they can, men do what they want. And I feel like the Seahawks got turned into boys, man. They got hit in the mouth. They got punched in the face. They got beaten up on the line of scrimmage. And I was expecting that from the offensive line because third stringers, fourth stringers, you know what you got from those players. But from the defensive line, Tommy, the amount of money you spent on the defensive line, the amount of draft capital you spent on the defensive line, a linebacker you traded for, which I understand he played good and first game, but I was really disappointed on the defense, Tommy.
Yeah, I was too. And I mean, I think that's kind of the feeling all around Seahawks Nation this week is, especially with the D line. I mean, that's a unit that we've grown to trust this season. They've been productive. They've controlled games at times, and for them to come in this week and basically get pushed around. I mean, there were multiple drives where the Bills just had their way. They were able to walk down the field, multiple 10-plus play drives. They're just having their way, steadily moving the ball down the field, and it just seemed like we had no answer at any time for what they did. And I mean, we could start with the defense, with the defensive line, some low lights, Derek Hall. I mean, everyone knows about the roughing the passer penalty that got him to a bit of a skirmish with Jaron Reed on the sideline. But, let's dive deeper than that. I mean, there were multiple plays going in and rewatching it where we need Derek Hall to set the edge.
Yeah.
And he was not able to do it. There were a couple times he was put on the turf. A simple move by the tackle, just hitting his hands down, and he would fall right in the turf, and James Cook would blow right by, and then we have to ask our corners and secondary players to tackle James Cook in the open field, which is not an easy task. And there were a couple of times where our interior defensive linemen were getting pushed back 5 yards, and you're just wondering where did this come from? Why is this happening? Because it hasn't happened all year, and so that's my take on the D line. I mean, Jonathan Hankins, who has been a good player for us early in the season, and I think he's playing injured right now. He's on the injury report last week. I mean, he came out this week and he gave us a 30.7 PFF grade, 30.7. I mean, there's not much more to say there. I mean, Derek Hall gave us a 42. That's not good. And, it just was very, very disheartening. We got sized up. The Bills came in and let us know who they are and, who we aren't. And so that's my main takeaway, especially on the defensive side. And, I think the linebackers are kind of figuring themselves out because, I mean, Tyrell Dodson moved to a different position. He's on weak side now. And then Ernest Jones is now playing the mic. And I think Ernest Jones did have a good game, but, he had a lot of tackles, but a lot of those tackles were after chunk plays or outside after we failed to set the edge. And I watched him the entire first drive, and it's hard to come in and just play 100% speed. You don't know the playbook all the way yet, but and I do think he played well, and there are some good things to take from his performance. But just in general, I mean, there isn't really any positives that I can just run away with from this game. And be like, yes, like let's take that next week. It's going to be really good, you know.
Yeah, yeah. 14 rushing first downs, Tommy. 14 rushing first downs. And it was not like they were running some outside they were running some outside zone stuff and on the perimeter, but most of the runs were right between the tackles, right in the middle of your defense. They made James Cook look like Derrick Henry out there, pushing people back. You saw Tariq Woolen, just giving up and just pushing somebody in the end zone. That play at the end, Tommy, when Ernest Jones, Ernest Jones got hit so hard that his helmet fell off on the back. I think that just put a signature at the end of the game and said, this is who you are, Seahawks.
I mean, there's a couple plays where it's that were just embarrassing. I mean,
Yeah,
let's jump into it. Like earlier in the game, Tariq Woolen gets a good stop on a goal line fade on Keon Coleman. They flip the side. Tariq fails to turn his head. Keon goes and head tops him. And of course, Keon Coleman's going to talk. I mean, there's that. Let's go back to the same matchup later in the game. Right off the snap, Tariq Woolen's in his first backpedal step. Keon
yeah,
Coleman puts him right on his butt and points at him on the ground.
yeah,
If you're Tariq Woolen, and Tariq Woolen has been dominant this season, he's been shut down. He's been great. You cannot let a rookie receiver who hasn't been amazing this year. I mean, Keon Coleman's a good player. I was able to kind of watch him closely at the combine, and I saw it was next to him. He's a big dude. Don't get me wrong, but you can't let a rookie receiver come into your home stadium and bully you like that. Especially
yeah,
when you are considered a shutdown corner. And so, I mean, that right there was really tough to watch and tough to process, and we made James Cook look like a powerful running back. And
yeah.
to me, he's more of a guy you get in space and he can make people miss in the open field. And he's not just a downhill runner that's breaking tackles, making people miss. And that's exactly what he was on Sunday. And so
Exactly.
for that to happen, it was just really, really tough to watch. Really tough to watch.
It's tough, man. Especially when you get pushed down. And Tom Brady was talking about it on the broadcast, and he was like, "Look how far these defensive linemen are being moved, pushed back." And you see these offensive line, and it's not. And one thing that surprises me, I would say, the Atlanta and offensive line, the Falcons' offensive line is better than the Bills' offensive line when it comes to statistics this year, right? Um, how would you explain the difference in those two games, Tommy? Is it an established team versus maybe a rookie head coach that didn't get their scheme and everything figured out, and so and Sean McDermott and his team, and Joe Brady. Joe Brady is a first year um, offensive coordinator as well, so I don't know. I think the Seahawks defense just didn't show up on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, first I want to say like I'm a huge fan of Joe Brady. I've actually been wanting the Seahawks to get Joe Brady for a while because he's a fantastic offensive mind. If you don't know, he was the pass game coordinator on 2019 LSU, and they made offense look real easy that season. And he did a great job of scheming guys open, making it easy for Josh Allen. But the difference between the two games is I think the Bills know who they are. The Bills know who they are. They're a contender. They're a
Yeah,
team that's been there before. They've won big games, and they've got Super Bowl aspirations for this season. And with Atlanta, they've got a first-year head coach. They have some type of identity, but there are especially on the offensive side, but on the defensive side of the ball, these teams are very, very different. The Bills
yeah,
are significantly better. And one thing I do want to point out too is the Bills have done a good job all year of just not turning over the ball. They
yeah,
haven't. And it was promising early on where we were able to kind of get the ball on the ground a couple of times with some fumbles, and we're able to get a pick and finally break that streak that Josh Allen had. But I think it's just identities, and the Bills know exactly who they are, and they come into every game and play their style of football, do what they want to do, And I don't think Atlanta has figured that out. But I don't want to take anything away from the win against Atlanta. I mean, that was such a promising win. It was
Mhm.
so good to go on the road like that and basically just dominate from the start. And for us to turn around and have a game like this at home against Buffalo, which I thought was a huge matchup, we could learn a lot about the team. And I think we did learn a lot about the team.
Yeah.
But it was very tough, and I'm gonna keep saying that all podcasts, just to get manhandled like that at home, and just to watch Buffalo fans basically take over the stadium,
Yeah.
which is known as one of the toughest places to play. But is it? And so the Bills the Bills are who they are, and that's really the way to dumb it down.
Sticking on defense, we'll get to offense in a little bit, but sticking on defense, this happens every year, regardless of coach, regardless of who's on the team. If you could blame one thing, Tommy, what would that be? Would it be, we've seen multiple schemes, we've seen multiple stuff, multiple coaching. What's the blame out there? Who can we point the finger at?
I don't think you can point the finger at one person. I think it's a collective group of mistakes that come at different times from different parts. I don't even think defensively. I'm not even sure it's a personnel issue. That's the thing. And I hate to say it because I'm a huge Mike McDonald advocate. Like I'd been wanting him as a Seahawks head coach since December of last year. And it one thing I like to say is the Seahawks have definitely struggled in man coverage this season.
Yeah.
Um, that is one thing that's become very clear. And so it's tough when you want to dial up blitzes and different looks and that bring you into man coverage on the back end. And we have struggled mightily to do that, to stay in coverage and be able to hold it down and give our blitzers time. And so but I do think at times it is personnel. And I'm gonna jump back to episode 1. I still don't think these guys are playing together. I don't think they trust each other still. And I'm not sure when that's going to happen, because when you get beat like this,
Yeah.
mentally you kind of start to lose trust.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it, there is no clear one person we could point the finger at. I just think at times, and I don't think you can let these assistant coaches off the hook either, these position coaches and coordinators. I think at times they're to blame as well. And
Yeah.
so it's definitely a collective thing. And like after a loss like this, they're going to have to go back to the facility and do some soul searching and really figure out what they want to make this season, because I think it's become apparent that the Seahawks are not going to be a great team this season. But with that
Yeah.
roster, they
Yeah.
sure can be a good team. They sure
Uh-huh.
can be a good team this season. They can be a playoff team. They can, show some growth this year. But I mean, this week is going to be massive. They've got to do some soul searching in that facility and figure out who they want to be.
Yeah. There was a quote out there from Coach Mike McDonald. He said, "We gotta, something about sunk costs, and we gotta just focus on what we're good at." I don't know what he meant by that. Maybe he just dials back the scheme and he says, "Hey, maybe we can't do these and that, and we focus what we're good at." Did you see that quote?
I did, and unfortunately, I have a feeling I know what that quote means.
Okay, what does it mean?
Me, that what he's telling us basically is there's a cap on who we are this season.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to open up the playbook and do different things that we want to do. We just have to focus on the things we've done well and keep working on those. And what else we want to do in the future will have to be addressed this offseason. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I have, because I do think, you're early, we're about halfway through the season now, but in the early part of the season, you are trying to, work things in and give different looks. And I think we have, and I think at times it's hurt us. And I think we starting to figure out what just isn't going to work for us this season with what we have. And that to me is just telling us that we are who we are, and we're going to have to be the best at what we are. And, so that's definitely what I'm taking. And, I could be totally wrong, but that's definitely the feel I've got. And that's kind of what I've seen on the field.
Yeah, and sticking to product, a lot of people on Twitter are saying, "Oh, the 12th man is gone. People are not showing up on the stadium." Pat McAfee had it on his show as well. He was talking about hey how Seattle's not a tough place to play anymore.
Seahawks fan base, 12th man or whatever, it's not real anymore. Did you hear about this?
Sorry, what?
No. What happened?
It's not real. Buffalo Bills, Bills Mafia, long flight over there, infiltrated stadium.
No.
Geno Smith said it felt like an away game
Wow.
in Seattle.
Yikes.
In Seattle, Seattle is the home field advantage place. That's literally what it is. Have you played Seattle yet? Tough place to play. Loudest place to play. Those Seahawks fans are insane. 12th man, boy, they win games for you. That is literally what it's built to be like. Allegedly, Geno Smith said Bills Mafia made it feel like they were playing an away game.
Man, I went to that 49ers game, and I kid you not, every place I went on the stadium, red jerseys everywhere. It was just filled with 49er fans in your home stadium. That is just crazy. And I think it just has to do with the product on the field. I think people are maybe like, because it's a cold. On Sunday it was one of the most rainiest days in Seattle this year. It's cold. It's rainy. And people just maybe don't want to watch a bad team, or maybe they don't believe in their team enough to get the win.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think it is a lack of belief in this team, and I'm not sure the team has given anybody a reason to believe. And I think that is the tough reality. And I think this offseason, the ownership, John Schneider, Mike McDonough are really going to have to, face the facts that, something's going to have to change. They might have to make a splash move to get people to buy back in. Because I don't know the last time, Jamal Adams, is that our last splash move and it didn't even work out, And so they're going to have to do it, because I think they're going to have to make a splash move this offseason to get fans back in, because a lot of this team, we made some solid pickups this offseason, but nothing that's like, oh, we got to watch out for the Seahawks. Like, oh, the Seahawks just got better, and I think they're going to have to make a move like that this offseason, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. So switching over to the other side of the ball, the offense, and I want to start with Geno, man. I'm the biggest Geno advocate. Seriously, every time I'm on Twitter, I'm defending Geno. I'm like, hey, the guy is a good quarterback. Don't, come on, don't say some silly stuff. Look at the stats, watch the games. But when people talk to me about his leadership skills, I don't have nothing to defend him with, because when times get tough, especially on Sunday, he just becomes a different person. And one thing I really appreciated about Russell Wilson, even though a lot of people say it was corny, it didn't make sense, he was this goofy guy, but one thing I really appreciated about Russell Wilson was on the sidelines, he would just be clapping, letting people know, hey, get up, let's go, we can come back into this. He had some leadership skills that I really appreciated, and I thought all quarterbacks had that kind of skill. And Geno, you just see him on the sidelines. They had a shot of him almost crying or something, maybe really disappointed, barking at his receivers. It was just a different leadership that you don't see from a franchise quarterback. And I think it's really important. And I understand that, from Geno's perspective, because everybody's saying, oh, you're a tier 3 quarterback, you can't play in the big games. So when it comes to these big games, like the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers, that's when he gets the most emotional, because maybe he's not playing on the same playing field. He doesn't have the right offensive line around him like Josh Allen does, or he's not getting enough protection. And that frustration comes out of him. But I think if you're a franchise quarterback, if you're the leader on the team, you got to stay composed at those times, no matter what.
Yeah, it was. I don't want to say Geno played poorly, and a lot of the time people want to just put the blame on Geno, and I think there's a lot of reasons. Now, I do want to say that we allowed our lowest pressure rate of the entire season at 18%. And, I want to – first thing I want to do is I want to give a shout out to the Bills secondary. They shut it down on Sunday. And sometimes you just have to tip your cap. And as frustrating as it is, because you want your team to win, the Bills secondary came out and held it down. They did. And they played well, and Christian Benford and all those guys in the secondary there in Buffalo, they came out and they did a great job of just shutting it down and making it really hard to find open receivers all day. And let's talk about DK. Boy, will that tell you a lot about how much value he has. And you can see it in the way Buffalo aligned defensively. They brought their guys up a lot more than they would have if we had DK on the field. And we'll dive into that a little bit more here in a little bit. But just with Geno, I've had an opportunity. I'd previously worked with someone who was with Geno at West Virginia, and was there in the whole recruiting process and that whole deal. And the one thing I remember hearing is like Geno is a gamer. Geno is a gamer. He is, and we've seen him, mature and grow up and work really hard during the weeks prior to the game. But I guess throughout his past, he hasn't been really like a big practice guy. Like I'm locking in, like we're doing this. And I think at times that might translate to game day. I mean, with Russell Wilson, it was always a routine. He always had a routine every week. And Russell Wilson always brought a very encouraging energy. And obviously we're not seeing that from Geno. We're not. He's not going around rallying the entire team, the defensive players, the offensive players that we saw with Russ. But I do think it's time for Geno to really step up and become that encouraging leader. When things aren't going well, who are we going to look at? When your team isn't playing well, what's the first player you look at? The quarterback. How is the quarterback acting? And I think that's one thing that I wish Geno could have taken from Russ. And I understand it's disappointing. It was a frustrating game. And it's okay to be mad. But you can't show it like that because that is going to reflect on the rest of the team.
Exactly.
And, so I completely understand Geno's frustration. I do. It was a very, very frustrating game, and not having your number one wide receiver out there is going to make it a lot more difficult against a great team. But it's the routine of being encouraging, being positive that, will continue to translate throughout the rest of the team. And so that's how I see it.
Yeah. And that's something that Pete Carroll said. He said, Geno is a competitor. He can be a hothead sometimes. We got to cool him down. You remember that Chargers game when he said, like, so we got to cool him down. Mike McDonald was talking about the voice of poise, and he's a spear, and we want him to lead the team. And I understand because when you feel frustrated like that, when it's on your face like that, when you're showing it like that, it transfers to the rest of the team. Your offensive line all of a sudden gets more shaky because they're more nervous. You've just made them more nervous, right? Rather than having a rallying cry and let them know, hey, I believe in you. Let's go. Let's do this. We can do this. All of a sudden, your team doesn't have belief anymore. It's a bad game. It's a bad weather, and it kind of brings everything down like dominoes, man. So I was really frustrated on Geno. I think his performance was okay. He played good. He wasn't the reason we lost, but I think he could have led the team a little bit better. He could have made some difference in that game if he didn't show all those emotions, which was very frustrating. But I understand. But he needs to be the voice of poise.
Yeah, and I just got one more thing to add. Let's just tell it how it is. NFL players are grown men.
Yeah.
They're adults. They have pride. They have egos. And so when you have a guy like Geno kind of getting on you like that in maybe a not so positive way, how would you react? It's just another grown man talking to you in a way that they've worked to be in the NFL just like Geno has, right? They're here for a reason. And I think at times that can get in their head and affect their performance. And I also think it's on the coach. Like, you're in the NFL, everyone's talented. Like the coaches, play a factor, but they're not everything. I mean, the guy's got to go out and execute. But I do think, Mike McDonald's kind of figuring out that as the head coach now, you're in charge of, your team's morale, your team's mindset. That's the stuff you can instill into your team as a head coach. And I think that's something he's going to get better at. I
Mm.
think that's just something he's learning right now. But he is at times in charge of, the vibes in that locker room. And it is a player ran league. It is. But, that is his job when he speaks to the team and the culture that you set in that building, and all of that goes and reflects itself on Sunday, maybe not on the stat sheet, but it's there.
Yeah. Moving on to DK Metcalf. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter who said, "Oh, if DK was here, we would have won the game." Maybe. I'm not sure if we would have won the game. I still think the defense would have still gotten run on. Maybe would the score would be a little bit closer. Maybe it would be like 30 to 15 or something like that. But I don't think DK Metcalf makes up 21 points, Tommy. That's ludicrous.
The Seahawks Twitter debates have only heated up now with DK's absence regarding his contract. And I feel like it's only been heightened with his absence and what happened. And now everyone's like, well, hey, this is why you pay DK. This is why you pay DK. And I think DK is a fantastic receiver, a true number one wide receiver. But, and let me just say this before I even get into the but. It would be different because what we really missed on Sunday was someone that could stretch the field. We don't have a receiver out there on Sunday that can stretch the field. There's no deep threat that the defensive coordinator is like, we have to make sure that he doesn't get behind any of us. We didn't. And so I do think that would have made a little bit of a difference with the way the Bills went out there and lined up. And I think it would have opened some more things underneath that we had seen, throughout the season. But to say that we would have won that game with DK, to me, is just a blatant lie. Yeah, one wide receiver to me isn't going to completely change the landscape of what was an absolute blowout. And, I do think, I will say, this does open up, do you pay DK? Because is this what the offense is going to look like if you let him walk? It could. It really could. It might force John Schneider to kind of rethink, where are we going to work these contracts? Because maybe we do need DK for this offense to really flow. And so I think only time will tell. It'd be easy to overreact after one game, but you can't. And so we'll just kind of have to see how the offense responds from this when DK comes back and what it looks like and what the teams, align on defense. And we'll kind of have to make a decision off that.
Isn't it a shame though, Tommy, that you don't have any other receiver like DK? You don't have a Keon Coleman. JSN is a top 20 pick, and I don't feel like he was a threat like Keon Coleman was. Right? Is JSN a number one receiver? Let me just ask you the question: Is JSN a number one receiver?
No, he hasn't shown it. And to be honest, pre-draft, I didn't think he was either. I'm just going to be completely honest. Pre-draft, when we were picking receiver, I was praying that it was Zay Flowers.
Okay, wow.
Like truly, I was like, I want Zay Flowers so bad. And I don't want to dog on, Jason. He was our highest grade player this week.
Yeah.
He was
65 yards.
He was our highest graded player this week. So, well, AJ Barner was, but AJ Barner played 19 snaps. So let's just pretend that we're not going to count that. So to say he played poorly, no, he didn't. But did he take over like we'd want him to, we'd want a first round receiver to do? He did not. He did enough, but it was nothing outstanding.
Yeah. And Daniel Jeremiah was talking on the Seattle radio show, and he was talking about JSN, and he said, in order for JSN to be successful, you need to have like a really good offensive line where he could kind of shine in that play action pass type of role. Kind of like how Detroit Lions, they use Amon-Ra St. Brown. So he was kind of comparing him to Amon-Ra. He was like, in order for JSN to be very successful, you got to have like a really good offensive line. You got to do the play action passes where he can, have those deep crossers. And so he was just talking about that. Would you agree with Daniel Jeremiah on that, or do you think, regardless, he's never going to be a number one receiver?
So let me say this first. I think a good offensive line will help basically anything. It starts up there. If you're able to, protect the passer, then it's going to make everything easier. Um, but do I think JSN can be a true wide receiver one? He showed it. He did. He did show it in college. Has he shown it in the NFL yet? No, unfortunately not. I wholeheartedly think that he has been utilized kind of poorly, to be honest with you. I don't think we have utilized him to his full potential and who he is. I think he is kind of stuck as that receiver 3 for us.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I do feel like we can open it up for him a little bit more. And I do think it starts up front. I mean, everything is gonna start with this offensive line.
Yeah.
Until it improves, the offense is going to stay the same. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it right now. We could still go make a trade, but so is every other team in the league. Offensive
Yeah.
line is premier. It's highly desired everywhere in the NFL. And every good team has one, and every bad team doesn't have a good offensive line. I mean, that's just the facts. And so I don't think we've seen JSN to his full potential yet. I don't. But from what we've seen so far, and that's all we can speak on, we can't speak on hypotheticals. I haven't seen wide receiver 1 from him.
It's just a shame that you don't have anybody like DK, somebody who could stretch the field. I think you got to address that down the field, maybe with a late round pick. Imagine if you got like as a scout. Let me ask you a question: did you ever think, and we'll talk about him later, but did you ever think Puka Nakua would be this good in the NFL?
No, and that kind of leads me to this rabbit hole where with what I've seen, like, because I think the Seahawks have a lot of talent. It's obvious. I mean, just look at their roster; they have talent, and I think there's a little bit of disconnect between the scouting department and the coaching staff. I mean, they had to create a whole new position for Jermont Jones. If you're signing a guy to that contract, you should have a position set for Jermont Jones. I think there's just a little disconnect there between the scouting staff and the coaches because we have good football players, but are they playing to their full potential right now? I'm not seeing it. And I think they've got to reconnect. Like, what do we need this guy that I'm scouting, who's a talented player, but can he fit in our scheme? Can he do the things? We have a plan for him. We're going to draft him. We're going to sign him. We have to have a plan for him. This is what he's going to do. This is my scheme. This is where I'm going to have him in my scheme. He can do that. I'm not seeing that. I think we have a lot of talented players, but I'm not sure these talented players are capable of doing what is expected of them in this scheme.
Is the front office losing talent themselves? That's another question that I want to ask because the Seahawks have been really great in drafting, and a lot of other teams hired away some of their scouts and some of their higher managers and all that to different places so they could lead different positions and all that.
Like the scouting community is so wide, and I'm very close with a lot of NFL scouts. The scouting community is very wide. It's known. People know each other all over the league. They talk, they collaborate. They're not keeping secrets from each other. And like, for example, I was at the Big 12 Pro Day in Frisco here in March, and a kid came in, ran a 4.3, and a Raiders scout was talking to him, and then a Colt scout walked over jokingly and like pulled him away and was just like, no, you don't get him. Like, we want him. And like, so there's not like, it's not secrecy. And that's why like insiders kind of know beforehand, like this team is thinking this. And that's why teams are able to build their draft boards because, okay, this team really likes this guy. Like, I think he's going to go here. There's no secrets. And my idea, and this is not going to be flashy. Maybe the casual fan might not like it, but raise the scouting pool, the money pool. Go get some well-known, well-respected scouts, because these guys, the best of the best, make about $100K. They can make a little bit more. Raise it, outbid them. It's like free agency. Go get well-known, successful track record scouts.
I agree with you. And it's not always the sexy conversation like pay scouts, but it is a really important conversation, as you said, because you need talent evaluators. And John Snyder, I think he's on the top. He's looking down on everybody, but he's not like in the day to day scouting. He's not doing all that.
No, totally. And so, they're always evaluating. I mean, we have scouts out right now on Saturdays at games all over the country. They're doing their due diligence. But to me, like I said, I'm just going to spin back to my original point. I think there's some disconnect between the coaches and our scouting staff about what we're really looking for. And I hope they can get reconnected.
Let's hope for the best. Moving on to the running game, man, it's just so sad that when you see Kenneth Walker, just a huge talent, get only 12 rushing yards or something like that. I think Seahawks had total 32 rushing yards. Kenneth Walker, and a lot of people told me in Michigan State, he was the program. He was the guy who was leading the whole program. The whole team, the whole program depended on Kenneth Walker. Such a huge name, such a huge talent. And we've seen like glimpses of some of the great runs he can be and some of the a difference, what of a difference maker he can be. And I think, and he's up for contract right now. And I feel like the Seahawks just wasted 5 years of Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker's a special running back, by the way. I don't like, and I am the biggest don't pay running backs guy out there, but Kenneth Walker is a very special running back, and he makes a lot of things happen out of nothing. And I don't know where this run game is really bad, but I don't know where it is without Kenneth Walker. I don't have a clue of where this run game is without Kenneth Walker, because with Charbonnet, I mean, we're seeing him. It's nothing. It's nothing. And the offensive line, the run block is not getting magically worse when Charbonnet comes in the game. That's just not how it works. And so we're seeing Kenneth Walker really just make things happen. And I don't know if there's going to be no drastic changes across the offensive line this offseason, which I'm not sure with how much offensive line are getting paid that you can just magically significantly upgrade it. I don't know if you can let Kenneth Walker walk out the door if you want this run game to be improved. And like that puts you in a bind. That's a tough decision, because when has return on investment running backs really like shown to really pay off? And this is going to be a really interesting offseason. And I don't want to jump to the offseason halfway through the season. We got a lot of football left. But man, oh man, like there is going to be some interesting decisions this offseason. And there's going to be some risks that we're going to have to take, because I don't know if you can let Ken Walker leave.
Yeah. One person I know for sure who's not going to be here is Draymond Jones. He's making too much money, and there's just too much talent on this team to pay. So probably he's not going to be here. But as you said,
I expect a mini purge this offseason. I really do. I see it. I feel it coming. Like, I think it was going to be some surprises out the door. I think maybe some non-surprises out the door. But I think the shakeup this offseason is going to be pretty interesting. I really do. I think that's going to spark a lot of talk, and it'll be good for us to have something to talk about. But I do think that, like, I just have a feeling this offseason is going to be pretty dicey, and there's going to be some interesting decisions made.
All right, so we talked about the running game. Let's talk about the receiving game. And we spoke a little bit about JSN. AJ Barner, I see some glimpses of him. I think he's going to be a great tight end. I see something in that kid, man. AJ Barner, the way he blocks and how the way he catches, he kind of reminds me of. I don't know if you saw this clip around around Twitter. People comparing him to Jimmy Graham and some of the ways he catches the football.
Yeah. At least he could block a little bit better than Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, that guy was. But what did you think? What did you think about AJ Barner coming out of Michigan? And do you think like he has some potential in the Seahawks?
I do. I like AJ Barner, and I think we knew when we took him, like, we weren't going to get just some star-studded superstar tight end. He came, but his biggest strength coming out of the draft was his blocking ability, and I do think he has shown some receiving ability this year, and I hope he can continue to make strides in that department. That would be really good if he was able to make some strides as a receiver, because I'm not 100% sure that's what we really invested in when we took him. And if he's able to do that, that'd be great because he has shown some flashes this year, and I think he could develop into a really good player for us. But I think for now we're going to kind of see him still in that same role, primarily as a run blocker, which is totally fine because that is what he is good at. And I hope he can continue to grow as a pass catcher because I do think there is something there. And obviously he's come from a winning program. You want winners. We got a winner. You just won a national championship. And he can get a little nasty in the run game. And you like that from your tight ends, So there's a lot to like there. And I just kind of want to see what steps he takes, as he progresses through his rookie season.
Also, Tyler Lockett, I wasn't super impressed with his game. I feel like he left a lot of yards on the table where he could maybe fight for some first downs. But I think that's just what you got to expect from Tyler Lockett right now. He's going to make the catch and he's going to go on the ground. He's not going to take a risk this in the 10th year of his season. So, I see a lot of people on Twitter kind of maybe really angry about this. Why is Tyler Lockett not fighting for some extra yards? He's never done that before, and I don't think you can expect it right now.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler is a future Ring of Honor guy. He is. I love. How can you not love Tyler Lockett? October 29th, 2024. I don't think Tyler Lockett's going to be on the team next year. I think when that offense strolls out game 1 next season, I don't think Tyler Lockett's going to come on the field. I think he will be somewhere else. I just think from what I've seen, with Ryan Grubb's offense and what he had at Washington, I don't think Tyler Lockett's a fit anymore for what we want to do. I don't think his skill set, and I don't feel like I'm discounting Tyler. I mean, he is a fantastic receiver. He has been. He's so consistent. Probably one of the more underrated receivers of all time, and will always be thought of highly among Seahawks fans, and hopefully that is the case. But I just have a feeling he's no longer kind of a fit for what we want to do. And I could see him getting phased out this offseason, especially with, his contract and things like that.
Imagine Tyler Lockett in a Steelers uniform with Russell Wilson.
Shoot, don't
That'd
count
be
it out.
huge.
Don't count it out. I mean, there's a lot of places I could see him ending up. And obviously he would be a highly wanted player. And so it'd be interesting to see what we talked about, where are we putting money? And this Tyler Lockett shown us to be a guy where it's like, we need to pay him. Like we need to make sure he is around, especially with the tough decisions coming up. I don't know. I don't know. That's not for me to decide, thankfully. But I just that's my prediction. That's my prediction.
All right. Speaking of predictions, let's wrap it up, man. Let's talk about next week's game: the Seahawks versus the Rams. The Rams come in to Lumen Field, and the Rams really played a great game against Minnesota. Man, Minnesota had a really great defense, a good offensive line, even though they lost their left tackle earlier in the game, and that Rams defensive line got after that offensive line. Controversial call at the end. But what do you think about this Rams team coming in? What is your initial analysis and what's your predictions?
Well, for the Rams coming in, I'm nervous because it seems like they may have found themselves again, especially getting healthy. When you lose like 70% of your offense, of course, things are going to look really different. And they're starting to get healthy again. And I told you in the last episode, this Rams team is a team I thought was going to be really, really good this year. And seems like they might be turning a corner. And that's the worry for me. And I believe the Seahawks opened up as 3-point favorites.
Yeah.
And now they're down to a pick 'em. So it's just a 50-50 now. And so I think people are starting to kind of wake up to the Rams being back. I am super nervous because if we go, like I said about man coverage, I'm worried about Nakua and Kupp and all those guys in man coverage, and oh man, I think the Rams, this is a must win. This is a must win for the Seahawks. They have to have it. They do. They're at home. The Rams haven't completely found their stride yet. The Seahawks' backs are against the wall. If they lose this game, they go from first place to last place in the NFC West within 10 days. They have to have this one at home. If they lose this, they'll be starting winless in the division. They'll have to be 0-2 in division play. It'd be another conference loss. They just have to have it. And I'm nervous. It is a toss-up. But ultimately, they have to stop Kyron Williams. They cannot let that run game get going and then open up the play action to Kupp and Nakua. If they get into a rhythm, if you let Matt Stafford get into a rhythm, it's over. It's over. Matt Stafford isn't who he was, but if that guy gets into a rhythm, he will be surgical. And you cannot let Matt Stafford be surgical or it's going to be a long day again. We're going to be sitting here next week and it's going to be like, let's talk about the draft. It's so ultimately my prediction, I'm going to have the Seahawks winning. I'm going to have the Seahawks winning 23-20. And that might be a little bit of hopeful thinking, but I think backs against the wall. They just got beat down. I have trust that this team is going to be able to respond. And I really hope they're able to. I've got them winning, 23-20 in a close game. I think it's going to be a last-second field goal just to walk it off, and let's get out of there with a win.
We're 1-1 on the record, Tommy. So this game is crucial for both of us as well. But one thing that really scares me about the Rams is Sean McVay on a bye, having a lot of time to watch film on the Seahawks defense. Matt Stafford getting healthy, this receiving core getting healthy. I don't know if George Fant plays this Sunday. I hope he plays right tackle. Mike Jarrell looked like he came down to earth the other day a little bit, but and I'm sorry I called him Gabe Jackson on the last episode. I don't know why I called him. That was remember the offensive lineman we got from the Raiders.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A couple of years back. I don't know why I called him Gabe Jackson, but George Fant. So I'm really nervous about this game. I think Sean McVay on a bye is very dangerous, man, against the new coaching staff. I think he'll find some weaknesses. I'm taking the Rams to win this game 23-20 on a field goal. And the reason I'm taking the Rams to win this game is because the Rams were on a bye and they had more time to prepare, more time to be rested. And I don't think the Seahawks offensive line can move the ball on the ground. And what will happen is the Rams are going to control the time of possession, and the defense is going to get tired at the end. So that is my prediction, man. I think the Seahawks lose this game, but I'm really optimistic about the Seahawks when they come back after the bye and they get Abe Lucas back and they get their offensive line a little bit healthy. That's when I think the Seahawks will go on a little bit of a winning streak.
Yeah, I almost make me want to change my prediction. Like it truly is. Like if the Rams are able to get Kyron Williams just going, if they're just get him in the go, running downhill, he's in rhythm, they're going to open up the play action, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be tedious. It's going to look a lot like Buffalo. And I know not necessarily a bye week. They had an extended rest, played on Thursday, but Sean McVay was watching that Seahawks game on Sunday, whether you want to admit it or not, and he was licking his chops watching Buffalo move the ball at will on them. And I'm sure he took a lot of things from that game that he's ready to apply this week, and we're going to see how it goes. I think my prediction is a little bit more wishful thinking. I think matchup wise, just as I described, run the ball into play action, I think all signs point to the Rams winning. But I just, I'm just hoping it's time. I'm hoping that a little bit of we can come a little fire and try to bounce back and, maybe get after Matt Stafford a little bit. But, Sean McVay is a good coach, and he'll have his team ready to roll.
I still can't get over that week 1 game last year when Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua just went bananas. Tutu Atwell, I was like, okay, but Puka Nacua, because that was his first game as a rookie, and I was like, who is this guy? I've never heard about this guy. And he's been like just kind of carving up the Seahawks defense last year. That game was really painful because I think there was a lot of optimism last year as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams, like I said, the Rams have an elite scouting staff. They've got an elite scouting staff. They always find these late round gems. They do a great job of it, and that's how they've been built up. That's how they put their team together with cheap, productive rookies on late round contracts. So it's going to be really, really interesting on Sunday, and I'm a bit nervous just because if we lose this game, I mean, it's going to be It's going to be bad. The media is just going to be having a field day. It's going to be doomsday in Seattle. It's going to be doomsday if we lose to the Rams on Sunday.
Twitter is going to go crazy. Twitter's
4-5, last place in the division. It will not be pretty. Everyone's getting fired on Sunday if we lose this game. But yeah, it'll be. I'm nervous. I'm definitely nervous for this one.
All right. Well, hey, let's hope for the best. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. We post the episode every Thursday. If you love the show, guys, please press the like button on YouTube and subscribe to the show. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week. All right. 12 men out.